My name is Riley Carter. I am 32 years old, and for most of my life, I was the person everyone depended on. A little over a year ago, I set my wedding date. I mailed invitations to 47 people. 31 of them were military friends, co-workers, and people I had served beside during long deployments. The other 16 were family. My parents. My sister. My aunts and uncles. Cousins I had not seen in years. At the time, I thought all 16 would be there. I was wrong. Before I tell you what happened, you need to understand how things worked in my family. I was the strong one. At least, that is what everyone always called me. My father, Dennis Adams, said it all the time. Riley is strong. Riley will understand. Riley can handle it. At first, those words sounded like compliments. Later, I realized they were excuses. Excuses people used when they wanted something from me. Excuses people used when they planned to disappoint me. I lived in Ohio and served as a logistics officer in the Air Force. My days started before sunrise. My job was making sure important systems worked smoothly. I liked structure. I liked plans. I liked solving problems. My husband James often joked that I could organize a hurricane. James was a CPA. Quiet. Smart. Reliable. The kind of man who never needed attention but always showed up when it mattered. That was one reason I loved him. When we got engaged, I felt happier than I had in years. We chose a simple wedding. Nothing huge. Nothing flashy. Just a small ceremony with the people we loved most. Or at least the people we thought loved us. 5 hours south of Ohio sat the farm where I grew up. The farm had belonged to my grandmother, Ruth Adams. She was the strongest person I ever knew. She could fix machinery. Balance finances. Negotiate prices. And somehow still make everyone feel safe. When I was little, she taught me everything. How to work hard. How to be responsible. How to keep my promises. Most importantly, she taught me that if something mattered, you took care of it. After Grandpa died, Grandma carried the entire farm on her shoulders. Then, in 2019, cancer took her away. I sat beside her hospital bed during her final days. I held her hand. She looked at me and said something I never forgot. "Don't let them lose this place, Riley." That was one of the last things she ever said. And because she asked me, I promised. A promise I would spend years paying for. Literally. After Grandma died, I started helping financially. At first it was small things. Then bigger things. Then everything. The mortgage. Insurance. Equipment costs. Emergency funds. My parents' insurance. Phoebe's phone. Phoebe's car. Phoebe's expenses. Month after month. Year after year. Money quietly left my account and traveled back to Tennessee. Nobody forced me. But nobody stopped me either. And after a while, nobody even thanked me. It became normal. Expected. Like oxygen. Something people only noticed when it disappeared. My sister Phoebe was 3 years older than me. She had always been different. Whenever something went wrong, everyone rushed to help her. When she got divorced, my parents practically rebuilt their lives around her. She moved back to the farm. Lived there for years. Paid almost nothing. Contributed very little. Yet somehow she was always treated like the victim. Meanwhile, I built a career. Served my country. Handled deployments. Earned promotions. But none of those things brought the same attention. Whenever I achieved something, I usually got the same response. "That's nice, honey." Then the conversation would return to Phoebe. I learned not to expect much. But I still loved them. That was my mistake. When James proposed, I called my family immediately. My mother cried with happiness. Dad congratulated me. Even Phoebe seemed supportive. We chose October 12th. I sent save-the-date cards months in advance. Everyone confirmed. Every single family member. For a while, everything seemed fine. Then one evening, about 6 weeks before the wedding, I called Phoebe. She casually mentioned her boyfriend, Cal Donovan. Apparently, he had been looking at engagement rings. I congratulated her. I truly meant it. I wanted her to be happy. But before ending the call, she said something strange. October is going to be a big month for both of us. At the time, I did not think much about it. A few weeks later, I understood exactly what she meant. 3 weeks before my wedding, a message appeared in the family group chat. Phoebe had posted a picture of a diamond ring. Underneath it, she wrote, "We're celebrating our engagement October 12th at the farm. Everyone come." I stared at my phone. October 12th. My wedding day. The exact same day. I thought it had to be a mistake. So I messaged her privately. "Phoebe, that's my wedding day." Her reply came quickly. "I know." I blinked. "Read it again." Then continued. "Why would you schedule it that day?" Her answer made my stomach drop. "Cal got a great deal on the tent rental." That was it. That was her reason. A tent rental. I could barely believe what I was reading. I reminded her that invitations had already been sent. People had booked flights. The venue was reserved. Everything was planned. She responded with words I would never forget. "It's just a small wedding, Riley. Just a small wedding." I sat staring at the screen. The words burned. Not because they were cruel. Because they revealed exactly how little she cared. That night, Dad called. Part of me expected him to support me. I was wrong. Instead, he tried negotiating. "Riley, maybe you could move the reception." "No." "Maybe have lunch instead of dinner." "No." "Maybe attend Phoebe's party afterward." I could hardly believe the conversation. He was treating my wedding like it was flexible. Like it was some minor event. Eventually he said something that made my heart sink. "I'll figure something out." I knew what those words meant. In my family, they always meant the same thing. The decision had already been made. Nobody wanted to admit it yet. That evening, James sat across from me at our kitchen table. He placed a piece of paper in front of me. Rows of numbers covered the page. Every payment I had made for my family. 7 years. 7 long years. I slowly read each line. Mortgage support. Insurance. Property expenses. Phoebe's bills. Emergency funds. The total sat at the bottom. $180,320. My chest tightened. I knew I had helped. I never realized how much. James watched me quietly. Finally, he asked one question. "Do you know what they've given you in return?" I already knew the answer. A few phone calls. A little appreciation. And an expectation that I would keep doing it forever. Nothing else. I folded the paper carefully. Then placed it beside a small jar of lemon verbena cream. The cream reminded me of Grandma. She used to make it herself. Whenever I smelled it, I remembered her hands guiding mine while teaching me to work. For years, I had carried her memory. And her responsibilities. But for the first time, I started wondering if I had carried them too long. 2 weeks before the wedding, my mother called. The moment I heard her voice, I knew. Something was wrong. "Riley." She sounded nervous. I waited. Then she finally said it. "Your father and I think it's best if we attend Phoebe's engagement party." Everything inside me went quiet. I stared through the windshield of my parked car. The world suddenly felt very far away. Mom kept talking. She's fragile. She needs us. Cal's family will be there. It would look bad if we missed it. I listened. Then I asked one simple question. What about my wedding? She started crying. That told me everything. They had already chosen. And it wasn't me. For years, I had supported everyone. Protected everyone. Paid for everyone. Yet when the biggest day of my life arrived, my own parents were choosing someone else's party. I felt something break. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Quietly. Like a rope finally snapping after being pulled too many times. Mom said the same words I had heard my entire life. Riley is strong. Riley will understand. This time, I didn't. And I was done pretending. After hanging up, I sat alone for a long time. Then I went home and told James two things. My parents aren't coming. He nodded sadly. Then I told him the second thing. I need the name of a good financial attorney. The next morning, I called Dad. I gave him one final chance. One final warning. If you don't come to my wedding, I said calmly, things are going to change. He sighed. Don't be dramatic. It's just one day. Just one day. The same words. Again. And again. And again. As if my wedding meant nothing. As if my feelings meant nothing. Finally, I said something that made him go silent. Most of what Phoebe needs comes out of my checking account. There was a pause. Then another. His voice changed. Defensive. Uncomfortable. You help because you want to. Yes, I replied. You're right. Then I added one final sentence. Remember that. After the call ended, I knew exactly what I was going to do. The decision felt terrifying. But it also felt peaceful. For the first time in years, I was choosing myself. And once that thought entered my mind, there was no turning back. After my call with Dad, I stopped hoping they would change their minds. For years, I had been the one adjusting. The one sacrificing. The one understanding. Now it was their turn. A few days later, James and I met with a financial attorney named Andrea Prescott. She listened carefully while I explained everything. The farm. The payments. The wedding. The engagement party. The years of support. When I finished, she adjusted her glasses and looked down at the paperwork. Then she said something simple. You are not legally required to continue any of these payments. I already knew that. But hearing someone else say it felt different. It felt real. If I stop, I asked, what happens? Andrea looked through the documents. Your parents become responsible for their own expenses. I sat quietly. For 7 years, I had carried responsibilities that were never mine. Maybe it was time for the people who benefited from them to finally carry them themselves. James reached over and squeezed my hand. Andrea slid the papers across the desk. All you have to do is cancel them. That afternoon, I did. One payment after another. The mortgage support. The insurance. The equipment expenses. Phoebe's car. Phoebe's phone. Everything. 7 years ended with a few taps on a screen. It felt strangely quiet. No fireworks. No dramatic music. Just silence. The kind of silence that comes when a burden finally leaves your shoulders. 1 week before the wedding, my cousin Rachel sent me a screenshot. It was a message from Phoebe. Come to my engagement party. Riley won't even notice if you skip her wedding. I stared at the words. Riley won't even notice. My own sister believed that. Or maybe she simply didn't care. Either way, it hurt. But instead of arguing, I put my phone away. There was nothing left to discuss. People show you who they are. Eventually, you have to believe them. As the wedding got closer, more family members chose Phoebe's party. One by one. Excuse after excuse. By the final week, only 2 relatives still planned to attend my wedding. Rachel. And Aunt Connie. That was it. 16 invitations. Only 2 family members coming. The old version of me would have cried. This version didn't. Because something had changed. I was finally seeing people clearly. The night before the wedding, James and I sat together reviewing the seating chart. Several tables sat nearly empty. Originally, those seats were reserved for family. Now they would remain vacant. I stared at them for a moment. Then I picked up a pen, crossed them out, and smiled. I don't want empty chairs making people feel sorry for me, I said. James nodded. Everyone who comes tomorrow is choosing to be there. He was right. And that mattered more. Later that night, I opened my desk drawer. Inside sat the cancellation confirmations. Every payment officially ended. Tomorrow was October 12th. Tomorrow everything would change. I closed the drawer, set my alarm, and went to sleep. The next morning arrived bright and cool. My wedding day. I woke up surprisingly calm. No panic. No tears. No second thoughts. Just certainty. At 2 o'clock, I stood inside the chapel. The seats were mostly filled with military friends. People who had traveled long distances. People who cared enough to show up. People who wanted to be there. I looked around. No parents. No father waiting to walk me down the aisle. No sister. No uncles. No cousins. Almost none of my family. For a brief moment, sadness touched my heart. Then I lifted my head, straightened my shoulders, and began walking. Alone. Not because nobody wanted to give me away. Because I belonged to myself. James stood waiting at the front. The moment our eyes met, everything else disappeared. The empty seats. The disappointment. The betrayal. None of it mattered. Only him. Only us. His vows were simple. Honest. Beautiful. You taught me that family isn't who shares your name, he said softly. It's who shows up. My eyes filled with tears. Because he was right. More right than either of us realized. When it was my turn, I promised to choose him every day. To show up. To stay. To build something stronger than what I came from. Then we exchanged rings. The minister smiled. And suddenly I was married. 33 people stood and applauded. 33 people chose us. That was enough. More than enough. For a little while, I forgot about everything else. I laughed. Took photos. Danced. Celebrated. For the first time in months, I felt free. Then my phone started vibrating. Again. And again. And again. I ignored it. The reception continued. Music filled the room. People talked and laughed. The atmosphere was warm and joyful. Around sunset, I stepped outside for some air. Only then did I check my phone. 9 missed calls. 14 text messages. All from Tennessee. The first message came from Dad. Call me now. The second. Something is wrong with the insurance. The third. The caterer says payment didn't go through. Then another. And another. And another. Finally, one message caught my attention. What did you do? I stared at the screen. The answer was simple. I had stopped saving people who never appreciated being saved. I returned inside. Kept celebrating. And enjoyed my wedding. Later that evening, another message arrived. This one from Dad. What did you just do? I looked at it for several seconds. Then I finally replied. I canceled every automatic payment I've made for this family over the last 7 years. The mortgage support. The insurance. Phoebe's expenses. Everything. I pressed send. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then his response arrived. Wait, are you serious? I smiled sadly. Put my phone away. And returned to my husband. Everything was exactly as it should be. Meanwhile, 40 minutes away, chaos had erupted. Phoebe's engagement party was falling apart. The caterer wanted payment. Credit cards were failing. Bills were suddenly appearing. Questions were being asked. Questions nobody had bothered asking for 7 years. Who was paying for everything? The answer shocked them. It had always been me. The next morning, my phone showed dozens of missed calls. Dad. Mom. Phoebe. Again and again. I ignored most of them. For 24 hours, I wanted peace. For 24 hours, I wanted to simply be a newly married woman. And that is exactly what I did. James made breakfast. We drank coffee. We laughed. And for the first time in years, nobody needed anything from me. The peace felt incredible. Eventually, I called Mom. The moment she answered, I could hear regret. I didn't know, she whispered. I didn't know how much you were paying. That's because nobody asked. Silence. Then she started crying. I should have come to your wedding. The words hit harder than I expected. Because they were true. Yes, I said quietly. You should have. For the first time in years, someone was taking responsibility. It didn't fix anything. But it mattered. A few days later, Phoebe called. She wasn't sorry. She was angry. My engagement party was ruined. I listened quietly. Then I asked one question. Did anyone mention my wedding? She paused. What? My wedding. The one nobody attended. More silence. Then she tried another approach. The farm could be lost. And then she repeated the sentence I had heard my entire life. Riley is strong. Riley will understand. I closed my eyes. Took a breath. And answered. Not anymore. The line went silent. Then she hung up. And strangely, I felt nothing. No guilt. No anger. Only clarity. For years, everyone treated my strength like an endless resource. Now they were learning it had limits. A week later, my family drove 5 hours to Ohio. Dad. Mom. Phoebe. Even Cal. They stood on my porch asking to talk. I let them sit outside. The conversation was uncomfortable from the beginning. Dad wanted the payments restored. Phoebe accused me of being selfish. Cal mostly stayed quiet. For nearly an hour, they argued. Explained. Defended themselves. Then Dad finally said something that stunned me. It was just a small wedding. The words hit harder than anything else. Because they proved he still didn't understand. He still thought the wedding wasn't the issue. The issue was being treated like I didn't matter. I looked directly at him. I didn't want a party. I wanted my family. Nobody had a response. Because there wasn't one. For the first time, they had to face the truth. They had chosen Phoebe. Again. Just like always. Eventually, they left. Nothing was solved. But something important had happened. I had finally said no. And I survived. Weeks later, another problem appeared. A property tax notice. Thousands of dollars overdue. My name was attached to the property. Suddenly, I realized how much worse things were than I thought. The farm wasn't struggling because I stopped paying. It had been struggling for years. My support had simply hidden the truth. So I returned to Tennessee. Not to save the farm. To settle things once and for all. The entire family gathered around Grandma's kitchen table. Dad. Mom. Phoebe. Relatives. Everyone. I placed the documents on the table. 7 years of payments. Over $180,000. The room became silent. People stared at the numbers. No one spoke. Then I placed the tax notice beside it. Dad's face changed. For the first time, he truly saw everything. Every dollar. Every sacrifice. Every burden I had carried. And finally, he understood. Tears filled his eyes. I didn't realize, he whispered. I believed him. That was the tragedy. He genuinely never realized. Because he never looked. I gave him 2 choices. Refinance the farm. Or sell it. Either way, I was done carrying it. Then I placed Grandma's lemon verbena cream on the table. Everyone recognized it immediately. It felt like Grandma was sitting there with us. Watching. Listening. Finally, Dad looked at me. And said the words I had waited years to hear. I should have been at your wedding. No excuses. No conditions. Just the truth. Yes, I replied. You should have. And that was enough. Not forgiveness. Not reconciliation. Just truth. Sometimes that is where healing begins. Months passed. The farm survived. Dad refinanced. Phoebe got a job. Bills became their responsibility. Not mine. My name came off the property. My finances were covered. My life became peaceful. Mom started sending me a heart emoji every Sunday. I sent one back. Small steps. Careful steps. But steps forward. One afternoon, months later, I drove past the farm. The porch light was on. Just like when I was little. James asked if I wanted to stop. I looked at the house. The barn. The fields. The memories. Then I smiled. Not today. And kept driving. In the glove compartment sat a small jar of lemon verbena cream. Made from Grandma's recipe. I opened it. The familiar scent filled the car. For a moment, I could almost hear her voice. The woman who taught me how to work. How to endure. And finally, how to let go. I held the jar gently. Looked at the road ahead. And realized something important. For years, I thought strength meant carrying everything. I was wrong. Real strength means knowing when to put the weight down. So I did. And for the first time in a very long time, I was free.